like to welcome everybody to our second episode of Old School Guys Talking Old School Music. And I have my good friend, Larry Fulcher, with me. Larry, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm Arrington Thompson, and we are honored, blessed to have the legendary drummer, James Gadson. For those people who don't know, you need to look him up. He's played with just about everybody: Diana Ross, The Temptations, Cheryl Lynn, Paul McCartney, B.B. King, and hundreds of other musicians. It seems like through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, he played with just about everybody. Mr. Gadson, welcome to Old School Guys Talking Old School Music.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
It is so great to have you. Let me start off with, your father was a musician. He was a drummer, but he didn't want you to play drums.
No.
How did you wander into the drum scene?
Well, I could play, military drum beats, as they call it. In school, I played in the drum corps, but I never played a set of drums. So what happened when I went into the Air Force for 4 years? When I got out of the Air Force, my brother had a working band. He had learned how to play the guitar. I had no idea that he had gotten this good. He had a working band, so he invited me into the band, and I could play, at that time, 3 or 4 chords on the piano, and I was dancing the front man and doing all the Little Richard stuff and all that kind of stuff. And the bass player left the group and went with a famous jazz blues artist by the name of J. Mac Shannon. A lot of people don't know who that is. But the early 30s, my father played with him. And the drummer could play bass, and he didn't want to play drums anymore. So the drums fell in my lap. So my brother said, "Man, you can learn how to do it. Come on. Practice, and you can do this." And you can.
just step on in.
All right, and I didn't want to go.
So, Larry, you have a question to follow up?
So, James, how old were you when you started playing drums? You were a grown man, by all accounts.
Yeah, I was 21 years old.
So there was a lot of music inside of your spirit for you to be able to start playing drums at the age of 21 and play the way that you play.
Well, I was, I thought I was going to be a doo-wop singing star. That's what I really didn't. I went to school for music. I played the cornet, the trumpet in high school, but I didn't aspire to be a musician. I just knew they had a guy by the name of Frankie Lavin and the Teenagers. When he came out, that was the end of my career, as far as I was concerned. And then my voice changed too. I had a high voice. There's some records on the line on the federal label, a subsidiary of King, by the Carpets, the Kansas City Carpets, and I'm the lead singer on it. I think I was 14 years old at the time. This is during the time that James Brown they first signed him with the label, and he hit, we didn't hit for whatever. I thought he had it together. We were kids. We didn't really have it together, but that's what that was, and so I would rather play music than go to the post office or something of that nature. When I got out of the Air Force, there wasn't that many jobs, for our brothers and sisters. So I practiced, and we all sang together. So we would sing and play. So that made us a little hipper than a lot of the groups. So we worked a lot. We worked around town a lot, So that's how that happened. So and later on, I got tired of traveling, going on the road. I left my brother and did a stint with a famous group at that time. A lot of people don't know who it is. Hank Ballard and the Midnighters. He was the originator of the twist, and I worked with him a couple of years. I came back home. I just didn't like the road was pretty tedious. It was out, especially then in those days, And I worked with my brother for a minute, but I got introduced to the Hammond B3 organ. At that time, Jimmy Smith is getting his hot, and the Hammond B3 organ got hot in the 60s. So I was working with a gentleman that my father used to work with for a minute. He was a guitar player, and I learned to sing all the standards and stuff. We did a duo. But I was able to get a job in this nightclub. In Kansas City. It was probably the top black nightclub, playing drums. Everybody was for me, and so I learned at that time. I'm learning how to play at the same time. And then I sang, so that made it a little better for the nightclub situation because it gave it more of an entertainment situation. So I got to be a jazz drummer, but I mean, leaving out when I was the stint that I was with Hank Ballard and them, I played a lot of jazz because they played Coltrane all day. I mean, the guys would practice, so I learned how to play a lot of outside music a lot of times, and so a lot of people can't believe that I play jazz because of a lot of the R&B stuff that I did. So that I did that, but when I came to California, it was pretty rough for me because some gentlemen sent for me. I saw them on the Dean Martin show, some friends of mine. And they sent for me to come out and play with them. They were doing R&B pop. They were working all the big hotels all over the world. I couldn't play it. So they got rid of me. So it was pretty rough for me for a minute. I used to walk 55, 60 blocks out here to try to sit in with the jazz guys. At that time, jazz was still, it was still prevalent, and they were still hiring people. And the cats said to me, said, man, we don't know you. It wasn't like Kansas City or where I'm from, where if you could sit in, you could get a gig. So I had met this guy, John Boudreaux, previously when I came out here. He said, man, I'll get you a gig. So he got me a gig with Charles Wright. And that's when I was making the $12 a night on Thursday night at the strip club. The strippers were off. And plus with my drums.
So let me interrupt you here, and I would like to ask you one of these modern questions before we get into. I really want to get into your work with Bill Withers. What are your thoughts on sampling? It seems to me like you, and especially some of the grooves that you've come up with, have probably been sampled a gazillion times. What are your thoughts on that? Is that good? Is that bad for music? Is that good or bad for you?
Well, it's good and it's bad. The musicians, they use the music. So the musicians don't get compensated like they're supposed to. Even if they get compensated at all, because they're using the music part of it. They're not using, they sample and they're using the rhythms and the different things. So it's good and it's bad. So, it's, I used to hear myself all day,
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do. Let me slide into this next question, and then we'll let Larry ask a question. So let's focus on the early 70s, and I think you were playing with the Watts 103rd Street rhythm band at the time, and somehow you got with Bill Withers. How did that happen?
Well, I played with the Watts band at first. It was Charles Wright and Watts, the Wright Sounds, and Bill Cosby gave us the name, the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band. I met Bill Withers over at Charles Wright's house. I think Charles Wright might have managed Bill for maybe a week or two. I'm not sure. But I met him there. And the trombonist keyboard player that was with the Watts band, I think he and Bill got to working before Ain't No Sunshine. And I think this guy's name was Ray Jackson. He did the demos, but he didn't get the gig for the production, so I think they kind of fell out. When Ain't No Sunshine was Bill's first. So the second album, Booker T. Jones got busy with the guy that does Farm Aid, Willie Nelson, and so make a long story short, we produced it. We all produced it together, and I was able to. We had all been playing together with the Watts band, the bass player and the guitarist, and the keyboard. He was actually a trombone player, but he was an arranger, so he played keyboards too. So we were able to, I can't use the word, but we were able to play according to what Bill's thing was, and with the way that we felt. We didn't have to, we played what we felt. And, by us playing together, it came to be remarkable. It worked out pretty good. I mean, I got to experiment a lot. I got to play the rhythms that I say, hey man, I'm gonna try this. That it wouldn't probably normally wouldn't have happened.
Larry, why don't we start with "Lean on Me"? You have any questions about that?
On the song "Lean on Me," did you guys have any idea what you were going to be playing? Had you heard the tune? Had you previewed it, or you just walk in and react?
We had no idea. Ray Jackson, who worked with Bill a lot of times, played keyboards. He probably knew the the intro and all of the song, but we had no idea. I don't think we were scheduled to record that day. And so when we just started playing, and Bill said, well, man, put the tom on the verses. And when we got to the hook, call out me, brother, I had to figure out what to play right quick. So I had to learn how to play that after I played it.
Let's listen to that chorus, because I think that chorus, the song is, first of all, it's a wonderful tune. It rose to number one, and Bill Withers got a gold record for it. But to me, the chorus is just tremendous. The rhythm that comes out of that. Let me play that and see if that'll come through for us. So James, that's not the normal chorus. There's a lot of stuff going on in there.
Right.
How did that all come together?
It just that it was a sporadic movement, I guess you would call it. Just like a lot of times the jazz cats happen to, come across a certain vein.
Yep.
We had been playing together with the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band before we joined Bill Withers, and I guess I came up with that.
Because you and the bass player are really together. That is tight. That is very, very tight.
I had no idea.
Larry, what do you as a bass player, Larry? What do you got to say about that?
It's simple genius. It's that doo-doo-doo, boom, doo-doo-doo, boom, and it leaves so much space, and it's unique. You know what I mean? It's perfect. Space was the place on that one. You guys did wonderfully.
He came up with his part. We all came up with our own parts. It was a sporadic movement, I guess that's what I would call it, And so I had to learn how to play that, figure out what I played,
Well, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. One of the things that we were talking about before we started recording was your particular style of drumming. And I'm not sure we got into it, but, some drummers want to be out in front and they're basically trying to lead the band. There are other drummers that seem to me to be more understated. How would you describe your drumming style?
Well, I think, the feel and the groove, that's very important to me. The feel and the groove is very important to me. And by me being a singer, I would know how somebody would want to play behind me. I would want them to accompany me and not fight me, So I try to, my job is to try to make everything work. I'm like the heart. So
there's a thing that bass players and drummers do. It's like serving the song, and you do that really well from playing with you, James. Is you serve the song. like you, I love playing behind great singers, but you learn to leave that space. You learn what embellishes, what gives the singer room to do what he does. You know, you work with Bill Withers, you work with Marvin Gaye, you work with some great people. But your ability to serve a song, man, is pretty dadgum incredible.
Well, hey, the master above blessed me for whatever that I was able to bring. You know, I all praises to God Almighty. I mean, that's something that's, you know, that one would be blessed with. I would say, you know, for me to try to feel what a person's feeling, you know, that's a blessing. You know, that's a little different. That's something that really, I don't know if you can teach that or not. You know, you can teach at it, but teach it, it's a little different thing, you know.
So let's transition into one of my favorite tunes of all time, and we're going to have to talk about the drumming on this a lot, because to me it is just it's perfect. It is just perfect. So tell us about this tune.
Well, you know, we were in Spokane, Washington. We were on the road, and we practiced a lot when we were out there with Bill. You know, at that time it wasn't a back line, so we had to carry our instruments with us. So that day we were in Spokane, Washington, and we set up on the patio. And, you know, before he came out, I started to experiment with that. You know, I was experimenting close to it for, you know, a bit of time, as if something that I came up with. And when he heard it, he said, shh, shh, shh. He had me to put that on there. And when we got back to California, we rushed into the studio. And, it became a hit because there weren't any words to it. You know, he put the words to it. It was just a rhythm, you know, when we went in the studio. So it was just another a blessing, you know, for that to happen, you know, for that to come forth like that.
You have this thing that you're doing on this song. It sounds like three drummers. You know, you got the 16th thing going on the hi-hat that just, as a bass player, I'm going to lock into because it's keeping time. But your foot is just funky as all be dadgum, man.
Well, you know, that probably came in a way of speaking from my jazz chops or my jazz thinking, because a lot of times we would play a lot of polyrhythms, as they would call it. We played a lot of different things, one thing against another and different things. So, like, for me to just play, when I started playing R&B, man, for me to play that, you know, the groove and that was the hardest thing in the world for me to do. You know, for me to just play four. I can do it now. I mean, you know, but man, I couldn't imagine what is this, you know. But it's, you know, I learned, you know, it's all about grooving and setting a presence. So, you know, that's what I would say about it.
I saw this interview with you where you were talking about what a great learning experience recording for Motown was. And it's something that I got to do too in the late 70s. You really learn that thing of serving the song. You know what I mean? Not you can call it understated, you can call it whatever you want to, but it serves the tune. And then you do it with such artistry. It's not like, it sounds simple, but it's not easy.
Very true. The Motown rhythms that they had, you know, Motown was a great teacher for me, man. They really, when I went to Motown, they really helped me and showed me a lot of different things. That was a good school for me. Even the feel, they had a certain way that they would do the feels. They had certain rhythms that they would play. Although when I got there, they would. I was able to play different rhythms and stuff. You know, I was able to utilize, like one of the songs, "Dancing Machine," or different things that I played on. Man, it was a great school, and that's where I really learned how to, you know, to make records. Was at Motown, you know. So it was.
Let's get back to use me. I mean, sometimes producers and groups will, if a musician comes up with something that's just spectacular, they will give him some credits, some writing credits, a little bit of publishing, much like the OJs did with Homeboy on that For the Love of Money bass line, which makes the tune. Did that ever come up with you? Because that usually is certainly unique.
I don't like to talk about it because, I'm a Christian now and you forgive one another. But I didn't get any writing credit for quite a bit of songs. Express Yourself, that was a big hit with the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band. Naturally Use Me, Kissing My Love, no credit for it, so, it's kind of, it's not a pleasant thing, to think about that, I mean, I got the credit for, well, hey, the people, of course, the suits upstairs, they don't know. They don't know, but I mean, a lot of the musicians know, well, hey, man, your drum beat such and such was great, our fellow musicians. But, for me to see some royalties off of that would have been wonderful.
Yeah, because, I mean, you certainly, the flavor to the tune, it's a simple tune, it's just 2 chords. But what you did on the drums, man, just made it so dadgum unique.
That's what made it stand out. That's what really, in my opinion, really made it stand out. It gave that tune and infused it with a groove that was, as you said, unique. So let me ask you about your career as you look back over more than 50 years of drumming. What advice would you give to a young drummer who is starting out right now?
Even though we have I would have him a drummer should learn how to play keyboards so he can write. Learn his rudiments. Learn how to read music, which I had to teach myself because you never know when it's coming around, even though we have a lot of this modern technology and we have a lot of, that it's a different thing. But I would learn the basics. That's one of the basics of the music. And really learn how to play the blues. Because the blues is the root. And if you don't know how to play the blues, then a lot of the other stuff you ain't going to understand no way. So.
Larry, you have a final question for him?
James, when we started playing, you had to prove yourself by going out playing 6 or 7 nights a week in a club. And you got feedback from the audience to let you know what you were doing and how you were doing it. How would you recommend a young drummer or a young musician acquire that in these days when so much of what we do is just sitting down in front of a computer? When there's no such thing as working 6 or 7 nights a week and having to prove yourself?
Well, practice is that's the key to really being established and being a musician. I still practice. I have to practice more so because I'm older and my joints are a little stranger. But I think that you should constantly, just like the famous symphony orchestra people, the violinists and all of those, they have to study all their lives. Being a musician is a lifetime situation, and I think that you have to keep up with, even though you might not like a lot of the music that you might not want to play or whatever it is. I think that you should try to understand all the music, by you being a musician. I learned that by being in the studios. At one time, I looked past a lot of it, and I didn't think too much of it. But once I was able to record with a lot of different people, and I understood, people coming, everybody's coming from a different place, and it's beautiful. All the songs ain't cool. You might not like all the songs, but it's music is a wonderful thing, and it's a wide variation of a lot of spirit. So I think that you should be checking out everything. If that's what you're going to be that.
Okay, my last question is a combination question. As far as drummers, who were you listening to? Who were you digging when you first started? Who do you dig now? And the last question that I got asked, what was it like working with Marvin? You can start with any of those.
I couldn't hear the last question.
The last question was, what was it like to work with Marvin Gaye?
Working with Marvin.
Marvin Gaye was a drummer at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Gaye was very cool. I mean, he didn't put no pressure on nobody. He just wanted it to flow, to be, the flow. And so he was very creative, and he would let you play. He wants you to be creative. By you being creative, that made him creative, see.
Mm-hmm.
So he was cool like that, It was wonderful.
So who did you listen to growing up? What kind of drummers did you listen to growing up? And what kind of drummers are you listening to now?
I heard a lot of people. I heard the Count Basie band, and because my father, Duke Ellington, and the drummers, that was Joe Jones and different people that were playing at that time. But I wasn't really into, I was a doo-wop guy, so I wasn't really. I mean, I heard it, and by the time I got to, L.A. is really what when I got out here and starving to death is really what made me really bunker down and study, this craft and of everything happening. I mean, today I like all the young guys that are playing. I mean, and the R&B stuff. I like that Anderson .Paak that plays with Bruno, and that's that Silk Sonic thing. Mm-hmm. They're playing good music. I like that, and it really makes me feel good to see them playing and performing too, dancing and playing. I mean, they're having fun. I just think that's a wonderful thing. It's a great thing. It makes me proud. So I listen to him. I listen to all the guys. I played with Harry Styles. I like all of them. They all have something to offer. You just have to get into it. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't.
Go ahead.
As a bass player, I've worked with you in really small places, like Residuals in Hollywood. Remember that place?
Residuals? Yeah.
I think that's where I first played with you. And I played with you in massive concerts, like with Jimmy Barnes. And as a bass player, man, it's such an inspiration because I don't really have to think. I mean, at one point I look back and think, damn, that's James Gadson playing this film. But
well, man, I looked there and that was Larry Fulcher. I mean, it's when we hit that bandstand, everybody's the same. It sticks us all to make that music. That's the way I look at it. Even when we had Australia, that was great. It was different, but it was great.
We had a ball. Ball.
So I mean, it was always a pleasure and an honor to play with you. I mean, when I hit that bandstand, it's like to me, it's like the heavyweight championship of the world. I mean, I give my best. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. If I'm too sick, I don't even want to play. But I give my best, I give my all in all, because that's the love that I have for the music.
Well, man, just so you know, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but every musician that I know, and I know some really great musicians, when your name is said, there's like a Gadson. It's just a stop, and it's like, I don't say like Jesus walked into the room, but it's like Gadson, yeah. So
well, everybody loves James.
God bless you.
All praises to Jesus, because that gift had to be was bestowed on me. For me to come for what happened, what has happened to me, to be a drummer in this career. I mean, the travels that I've had in my career and my life, it's a blessing. And so all praises to God Almighty. It couldn't have come from nobody else.
Yes, sir.
We have been talking with James Gadson. We are old school guys. I've got Larry Fulcher. I'm Arrington Thompson. And please check out Larry Fulcher's new website at larryfulcher.com. And then we're having a website, oldschoolguys.net. Again, thank you so much, James Gadson, for being with us. This has been absolutely a true pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a wonderful time. Thank you.
James, anytime I'm in a conversation with you, whether it's verbal or musical, it's always wonderful, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.